And then some other kids like, oh, wow, we didn't do that. Like, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Your dad actually talks to you about stuff, because my dad don't talk to me about nothing. He just sits down and looks at the TV, and then until he goes to sleep and gets up to work, and then the cycle repeats, you know?
Yeah. Because that's what his dad
So,
did. Yeah.
right. A lot of us are just perpetuating the same thing that we dealt with.
So I'm really glad that you've got this platform that you're ready to share all of what you know. And I think as therapists, we already know, even if you're just like a week out of training, you haven't
Hmm.
even you've hardly seen a client. You've just done some case studies and you're getting your hours in. You've got to do
Right.
100 hours in this country of seeing some clients for a bit. Even if that's all you've done, you've seen two clients, you
Right.
still know more about mental health and communication than probably 99.9% of the population. But because of imposter syndrome, the more that you know, the more you realize there's more to learn. The Dunning-Kruger
Yes.
effect. And it is what it
Absolutely.
is. And,
Yeah.
and that is the case, whether it's about mental health or theoretical physics or psychological theories, whatever it is, the more you know, the more you realize there's more to learn.
Yes, sir.
And we have to be okay with that. But the more you know, you still have more to share than most people. And we
Hmm.
need to be sharing these stories. We really, really do.
Yes. No, we do. And I love that you said that. Like, when you said that, I'm gonna try to make a point off of that. But this for me goes back to parenting.
Hmm.
I don't know how you feel, but I'll speak for myself. I feel like we do the greatest disservice to our children and the next generation if we're not willing to be honest about a lot of the choices and the decisions that we made, even the ones that didn't go well, even the ones that you
Mm.
would consider mistakes or failures.
Yep.
Because, and I don't want to speak for you as a father, but for me, I'm not expecting to prevent my son or any future children I may have from all issues. That would be foolish. But if I can help alleviate some of those unnecessary pain points or hardships that he may have to go through, I feel like it is my responsibility to do so. But you can't learn if I'm not willing to share.
Yeah.
If I keep all that in because of my pride, like, I don't want to tell him about, I got my heart broken 3 times. Um, really embarrassed. So I don't want to
Mm.
tell him that. I want to still be his Superman. So I don't want him to
Yeah.
look at me as weak, and yet
Damn.
watch him go through the same experience. And then I'm like, it's literally what I did.
Yeah.
Why didn't I just tell him that? He probably, we could have talked. Not saying, I could have saved him from it. We could have talked about it, and maybe it would have helped him get out faster. Right.
Yeah. Or even if he just has exactly the same experiences, despite you warning him, hey, this is what happened to me, and he does
Yes.
exactly the same thing, at least then it's going to be easier for our kids to come to us and go, hey, this has happened. Because they know, dad's been there. He
Right.
knows. He
I'm
knows
not
what
going to
this is
judge you.
like.
I'm
Exactly.
like, I already bared my soul to you. You saw, I was like, hey, I was devastated, son. I was
Yeah.
completely devastated for a year.
Yeah.
And it was hard for me to pick myself up, but I had to utilize support and family. And I went to therapy and whatever other things I did that helped me. I feel like that's like another driving force, if you will, for me in making this platform and sharing these experiences and trying to learn as well.
Mm.
Because I'm not the arbiter of truth or know
Mm.
everything. But I say that because to me, that's how you make that change. That's how I can do my part to be a part of that change. Is young men, also young men that are not my kids or my child, to give them some of that wisdom, some of that experience that they may not be hearing elsewhere. Which is why I think it's important, as you've pointed out, to have these types of discussions on these public forums and platforms. Because somebody might click with that and be like, I don't have a father that's telling me this stuff. I don't have an
Mm.
uncle or an older brother or a mother or a sister or an aunt or a grandparent that's telling me these things. I'm just out here making mistakes left and right that if somebody was there, maybe I wouldn't have.
Yeah.
You know, I feel compelled to want to help those people. by simply doing exactly what you said, just by sharing.
Yeah.
I did this. I'm not saying I'm you and you're not me. And I'm not saying all our experiences are the same, but if you found yourself in a similar circumstance, perhaps you may want to consider this.
Mm.
Perhaps you may want to try this and see if that helps you.
Yeah.
I feel like we can all do a better job of doing that. Even for those of us that are not in the mental health field, we can do that
Mm.
for our siblings, for our children, for if you want to mentor a young person, like whatever that may be. I think we can all do that. I don't know if you would agree.
Oh, absolutely. I think the stories that come from our individual lived experiences are what connect us. They really do.
Yeah.
And it means that conversations that we share, conversations that we have, they're not just those surface level conversations all the time that
Yes.
seem almost meaningless. And there's been times that I've had those experiences in the past. I've gone out with some friends, and then a few years ago now, I then come back and my girlfriend, who's now my wife, would say, "Oh, did you have a nice night?" Like, yeah, I guess so. We just talked rubbish and drank beer. Oh, okay. Sounds great. Elements of it were great. But maybe most of us, some of us anyway, we'll get to a point where actually to have a meaningful relationship with a friend, to have a good friendship, it's deeper than that.
Yes.
We don't just want to scratch the surface of each other and ourselves. Let's take a shovel in and dig and look at what's really going on. I think it's great to have a good dig.
Yes. I wish we would all, and I hope that we all do that more. I feel like, it to me, it creates that deeper connection, right? The more that you feel comfortable being open with somebody else, whoever they are to you. But I say, especially for those of us that are parents, because that helps to model better behavior, right? Because then they can like, well, my father was he didn't shy away from being open about how he felt, and this is like a selfish wish of mine that each of us, when we grow up, that we can say that I know my parent as as an individual. I know my
Yeah.
father as a man. I know my mother as a woman, irrespective of her role as my mother or my father. But their hopes, their dreams, their aspirations, their failures, their mistakes, that we feel comfortable enough to express all of that to them. So when we're no longer here, we're like, I have a good sense of who you were, because you weren't
Mm.
always a mother, you weren't always a father. Who were you before?
Yeah.
Like, what did you desire? What did you want? And then when we left and we moved out and we went to college or we got married or whatever we did, how did you continue to evolve as a person? That's a
Mm.
selfish wish of mine because I haven't had that opportunity personally to do that. But I hope for everybody else that we can build those types of connections with each other, particularly those that are parents, because we set the tone with the young ones, right? If we want to have those great relationships, we effectively can. Not that we control them, because we don't, but we can influence them by sitting them down and having those conversations from when they're very young. And they just kind of grow up and it's like, no, that's how it was in my house. And then some
Mhm.
other kids like, oh, wow, we didn't do that. Like, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Your dad actually talks to you about stuff, because my dad don't talk to me about nothing. He just sits down and looks at the TV and then until he goes to sleep and gets up to work, and then the cycle repeats. You
Yeah.
know.
Because that's what his dad
So
did. Yeah.
right, a lot of us are just perpetuating the same thing that we dealt with. And to your to go back to your other point about those of us that are trying to change the cycle, then we have
Mm.
to hold all that,
Yeah.
right? Because we're like, oh, I know better, so I'm trying to do better. But it's
Yeah.
hard because I'm trying to accept that my parent didn't do it for me, but that I feel emboldened enough that I got to do something different. And it's
Yeah.
sometimes it can be hard to reconcile those two. Like, I want to be a part of the change, but it's like, why didn't you? Why didn't you want to
Yeah.
do this? Because you made it harder for me to grow
Mm.
up and do what I was supposed to do. So I know sometimes it's difficult for us to hold those two truths at the same time.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. We've got to turn that "why didn't you" into "or why couldn't you."
Right.